provide you with the lowest per GB rates, night or day. SLT 4G, driving you ever forward.
Good evening, making headlines first at 9. It's not a demand. Minister of Ports and Shipping insists that India won't be given the East Terminal at the Colombo port.
West Terminal is a virgin terminal, so that has to be developed.
State terrorism. The JVP charges that the new Counter-Terrorism Act is worse than its predecessor, the Terrorism Prevention Act. Long last. Former DIG Nalaka de Silva, embroiled in the assassination conspiracy, arrested. Better sense. Expert calls on the government to have more foresight in policy in the looming budget document.
It is very important government rationalize some of its investment expenditures. Government must carefully think about rate of return to such investments.
Khashoggi murder mystery. Saudi Arabia's public prosecutor says the journalist's murder was premeditated. Bringing you news from across Sri Lanka and around the world on Other Derana 24/7. First at 9, I'm Indivari Amuatta. We take a look at your top stories tonight. A reprieve from the prevailing heavy rains may not be forthcoming over the coming days, as the Department of Meteorology today said that more rain is on the way. Releasing a communique, it cautioned people living in central, Sabaragamuwa and eastern provinces, as well as Galle, Mathura and Polonnaruwa districts to expect more rain. The prevailing deluge is filling up the country's reservoirs, as authorities warn that spill gates at the Randenigala reservoir may open automatically at midnight tonight. They urge people living downstream to remain vigilant.
Rains have been battering certain parts of the country recently as the northeast monsoon is in full effect. This morning, the unrelenting downpour led to a landslide on the Dandini mountain in Maudella in the area of Palmadulla in the Ratnapura district. As a result, 10 families were evacuated from the area. Heavy rainfall in catchment areas is leading to reservoirs reaching spill level. 6 out of the 21 spill gates at the Thabova reservoir are now open, with people living in low-lying areas cautioned to be vigilant. Meanwhile, 2 out of 8 spill gates at the Victoria reservoir were opened last night, with continuous rains rapidly filling up the tank. In the meantime, authorities today moved to remove several trees in Kadugannava and Lower Kadugannava in the central province in a bid to minimize accidents, as they ran the risk of falling under heavy rain. During the operation, one of the trees fell on a nearby shop, dealing heavy damage to the property.
People need to pay a lot of attention over the signs of the landslides. Today and yesterday we removed around 45 families from Ratnapura district. Especially this morning we have evacuated around 30 families from the Palmadulla area. So if any signs of the landslide being observed, people need to move from those locations. Still the lightning damages are there, so there are a lot of damages being recorded in these few days time. So people are requested thoroughly to be taking all the precautions to minimize the lightning damages which is expected tonight as well. We have alerted all the tri-forces and the police and the district disaster management units and the fisheries department. So 117 call center number is updated with fully updated with all the informations.
Due to prevailing situation and the weather forecast from Met Department, we have been issuing some warnings for particular areas. And so today, evening 4 o'clock, we have issued level 1 warning, that is yellow warning, for Alapane Divisional Secretariat Divisions in Nuwara District, Kuwela Divisional Secretariat Division in Matale District, Gangawata Korle and Udunura Divisional Secretariat Divisions in Kandy District, Ratnapura, Elapatha, Palmadulla and Nevitigala Divisional Secretariat Divisions in Ratnapura District, and Pasthara and Lunugala Divisional Secretariat Divisions in Adulla District. National Building Research Organization will issue warnings according to rainfall threshold levels.
Former DIG Nalaka De Silva was arrested today by the Criminal Investigations Department. He was at the CID from 9 in the morning, recording a statement for a fifth day, at the end of which he was arrested. The former DIG is accused of conspiring to assassinate President Maithripala Sirisena and former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Meanwhile, Minister Field Marshal Sath Fonseca today responded to allegations that implicate him in conspiring to assassinate.
මම අපරාධ පරීක්ෂණ දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවේ මුල් ප්‍රකාශවලදී ලබා දීලා තියෙනවා නාලක සිල්වා මහත්තයා සමග දේශපාලනික ළඟම හිතවත්කමක් පවත්වන කෙනා තමයි සරත් පොන්සේකා මහත්තයා කියලා. ඒකට හේතුව මම දන්නවා මේ කේස් එකේ පිටිපැත්තේ ඉන්නේ සරත් පොන්සේකා මහත්තයා කියන්නේ.
This clearly proves that Namal Kumara is a crazy person who needs to be admitted to the mental hospital in Angoda because he keeps accusing everyone. I met with DIG Nalaka De Silva only once in my life. If we are to listen to a crazy person and sack the DIG, we would have to do the same for all other DIGs and generals. We are late in arresting him as it is, but we must do so and launch an investigation into his behaviour. He does have a political agenda and we need to find out who is behind it.
නියෝජ්‍ය පොලිස්පතිවරයා හා නාමල් කුමාර මහතාගේ මේ හඬපට ගැලපිලා තියෙනවා.
Those voice recordings never mention murdering or assaulting anyone. They said that the Prime Minister must be given a boost. And isn't that a good thing?
President Maithripala Sirisena says it is an opportune time to enhance the agro sector with the arrival of rains after the country endured several years of drought. The head of state touched on the matter at a religious event held in Kurunagala today.
The newly built two-story relics mansion at the Shailatala Rama Rajamahawihara temple was unveiled by President Maithripala Sirisena today. The president also planted a white Bodhi sapling which was brought from India.
How much food do we import? We pay over 10 billion rupees for finger millet per annum. There is no such thing we do not import in the name of food. We, however, had an excuse for that, as we were battered by the drought which lasted for several years. But with the arrival of rains, we have to trust in our own strengths. We have to decide whether to consume imported foods or to grow foods that we can grow on our soil. As an agricultural country, we should have a discipline geared towards economical growth. How many state resources and properties are wasted in government institutions? All of these things matter when we talk about the economy and the cost of living.
Moving on to other local stories, despite widespread criticism and demands, Planters Association of Ceylon today stood firm in their stance that the daily wage of plantation workers will only be increased to 600 rupees. Protesters were organised, or rather protests were organised yesterday as well as today by plantation workers demanding their daily wage be increased to 1,000 rupees. In reaffirming their stance, members of the Planters Association, however, urged all stakeholders to be mindful of the fact that the Sri Lanka tea industry is making losses.
Plantation workers launched several protests yesterday, with one also staged in Colombo, demanding that the government increase their current daily wage of 530 rupees to 1,000 rupees. In Colombo, their protests were met with tear gas launched by the police. Meanwhile, today shop owners in Kotagala and Norwood closed their shops and engaged in a Hartal campaign in solidarity with plantation workers. In the meantime, the protest march commenced by 10 plantation workers from Bogavantalawa yesterday continued to advance today as well. Their protest march is based on 14 demands. The Planters Association of Ceylon today, however, denounced the demands by plantation workers. They were firm on their stance that the daily wage of plantation workers will only be increased to 600 rupees.
Generally, all the people in the plantations are capable and are achieving the productivity incentive and are going beyond that. No plucker we have seen, he or she doesn't stop at 18-19 kilos. According to our records, contrary to much, lot of talk is going on, more than 80%, some companies 88, 90, 87, of the 20 companies, more than 87-88% of the people are entitled to the performance or productivity incentive. That means they are plucking the norm. We see that pluckers are plucking 30-40 kilos and they're earning 35,000, 40,000 rupees. It's there on record. So if a worker plucks 22 kilos, he's got his 1,000. So I know there's a lot of talk about this 1,000 rupees. We have already offered it from 2005, except for 2007 and 2012, with a small profit. Tea plantations as a general industry have run at a loss. The reason is declining world market commodity prices. Already we have lost the Japanese market. We have lost many markets in the Middle East and in Russian Federation that absorbs about 70% of Ceylon tea. So this is a macro picture. We compete in the world market. Unlike other countries, unlike India, 95% of our tea is exported. We don't consume it in Sri Lanka. So when we send it abroad, we have to compete with other tea producing countries at almost the same price level. So unless we improve productivity and get more revenue, from that only we can pay the workers. From 2015, the glyphosate was suddenly stopped and we didn't have an alternative. We decided. As a result, the regional plantation companies lost about 10 million kilos. That's about 6 to 7 billion rupees only on revenue alone, added to the fact that we have to spend more money to do weeding, so that was an added cost. And it has a compounding effect. Even today, low country is supposed to be the most dynamic, most vibrant tea sector. 48 to 50 factories have closed down. Even in the last 5-6 years, when we ran at a huge loss, we didn't close down and we went and paid the salaries to the workers on time. So this time around, what we are requesting is all contending parties and stakeholders must see reason, see facts and come to a workable agreement.
Secretary of the JVP MP Vijitha Herath accuses that the government is exercising state-sponsored terrorism through the new Counter-Terrorism Act. Addressing a media briefing held in Colombo today, the parliamentarian alleged that the new act is more severe than the Prevention of Terrorism Act.
Through the joint statement at the UNHRC, a promise was made to nullify the Prevention of Terrorism Act, so it must be done. What they have done here is remove several clauses in the Act and then add much stronger clauses to it. This Act now allows a statement made by a person before an Assistant Superintendent of Police to be considered evidence against the particular person. This Act also considers it a terrorist activity if trade union members do not report for duty once the President declares these duties to be essential. Now, how can these be terrorist activities? This Act also allows officers who are not below the rank of Senior Superintendents of Police to issue orders preventing groups of people from protesting as well as mass gatherings. This is not something that can be done under the current law because that order must be given by a court. So, it is the Foreign Affairs Minister who is going to introduce this Act. The Minister will have the power to prohibit activities, meetings and other gatherings of an organisation for 1 year. He will also be able to extend that period of prohibition if he wants to. This means if he wants to, the Foreign Minister will have the power to close down a media institution using this Act. Although they call this the Counter-Terrorism Act, state terrorism is being exercised through it.
Meanwhile, several trade unions distributed handbills to the public, calling for action against the Counter-Terrorism Act being passed in Parliament.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe laments the deficiency of professionals in the IT sector. Addressing a function held in Kamurugama of Matara today, the Premier stressed the need to train 16,000 youths in the next few years to fill in the void.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe graced the opening ceremony of the 30th National Youth Games held at the Kotavila grounds in Kamurugama of Matara this evening.
Today, we're trying to go for an export economy and train our youth for it. Therefore, the next task of this ministry is to give the training to the youth. There is a deficiency of 16,000 professionals in the IT sector. If we want to develop this country, we need to give that training to 16,000 during the next 2 to 3 years for them to be employed in respective companies. Even after that, we need to train 5,000 to 6,000 professionals daily. We will start that program for the future of the youth. We have stabilized the economy and whatever issues we have to face in the world economy, including fuel prices, we can face them. The youth will feel the advantages of an export economy by 2025.
Meanwhile, at an event held at the Temple Trees this morning with the Cadet Corps of the SAARC region, the Premier spoke on the necessity of collaboration between the region's Cadet Corps.
We have looked at how Sri Lanka can expand the cadet services. So therefore, it has to be a gradual process of expansion. As we go along, we'll be having the vocational upper secondary stream also coming in. But let's also look at close organization between the cadet corps of our region. If we work at it properly, the largest cadet corps in the world can be in South Asia. Together with the schools, and within the schools, the cadet corps can become one of the most important institutions parallel to the school system in character formation and in making people aware of the security needs of a country.
Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa is of the view that the government is attempting to avoid its responsibility of giving prominence to Buddhism through the proposed constitution. While addressing media following a religious event held in Ambalangoda today, the former president went on to say that leaders of other religions are more concerned about the matter than so-called Buddhist leaders.
A new constitution is to be introduced. Through it, the place given for Buddhism is gradually removed and security is reduced. The government, which has the responsibility to nourish Buddhism, is trying to veer off the responsibility at a time when all the other countries are trying to protect their religions. We can't let this happen. His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith made a statement in public saying that the place given for Buddhism can't be eliminated. It shows that they are more concerned about the country than most of those so-called Buddhist leaders. I don't want to comment on this government. We know that the people want a new government. We will establish one as soon as an election is held. If we are able to establish a new one before that, we will do so.
Minister of Ports and Shipping Mahinda Samarasinghe today touched on the much-debated potential involvement of India in the Colombo port. Addressing a media briefing held at the SLFP headquarters today, the minister went on to say that government is of the stance that the East Terminal would not be given to India and instead the West Terminal of the Colombo port would fulfill the need as it requires heavy development. The minister affirmed that it is the government's stance that the neighbours should invest in the West Terminal if an investment is to be made at all.
Minister of Ports and Shipping Mahinda Samarasinghe today addressed the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's disappointment over implementation delays in India-assisted projects in Sri Lanka as per the bilateral memorandum of understanding inked by the two countries last year.
When we take a look at this MOU, there are many projects which fall under it. There is a delay in the implementation of these projects. For an example,
regasified liquefied natural gas fired 500 megawatt capacity LNG power plant for which GSL will issue a letter of intent to Government of India or to GOI representative by end of May 2017. An LNG terminal floating storage regasification unit in Colombo, Kerawala-Pittiya, a pipe gas distribution system, retail outlets for supply of compressed natural gas to the transportation sector, and conversion of liquid fuel-based power plants to RLNG fired power plants in Sri Lanka.
Now, where the delay? There is also investment or human resources, so what the delay?
These projects, I don't know, those you must ask the respective ministries what the delay is, but it is delayed and we have taken a decision to expedite matters. The respective ministries must now bring cabinet papers and get the concurrence of the cabinet to embark on this project. So now that will be done.
India is interested only on
No, not that they are interested only in the East Terminal. They want a terminal in the Colombo port. We have already invested a large amount of money, a significant amount of money in developing the East Terminal. So whoever comes to the East Terminal would not have to invest as much as they would have to invest in the West Terminal. West Terminal is a virgin terminal, so that has to be developed. We are adhering to the MOU. We are not going against the MOU by proposing the West Terminal.
Is India insisting on this?
No. Not that I know of, because when the President of our country tells the Prime Minister of India that we can't give this, that we want to keep this, but the West Terminal can be given, that is the consolidated position of the government of Sri Lanka.
We'll be back with your business news after this short break. To stay with us.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
Prominent academic Dr. Priyanka Dunusinghe is of the view that the government should take note of sending strong signals of policy consistency to investors through Budget 2019 while also giving serious consideration to cut down on wasteful and unproductive expenditure. In the fourth installment of our segment Budget Expectations, Dr. Dunusinghe also expressed concern in the manner in which the government's Rural Infrastructure Investment Programme Enterprise Sri Lanka is being implemented.
We have heard in recent months that government has taken some steps in spending government revenue, giving more privileges to parliamentarians and appointing more members to local bodies. In this budget, government must cut down such wasteful, unproductive expenditure. And at the same time, I think it is very important government rationalize some of its investment expenditures. When we carry out mega projects, government must carefully think about rate of return to such investments, because most of such mega projects are launched with the foreign loans. The level of foreign debt will increase, and as a result, in future debt repayment will be a burden. Right now, the business environment remains very weak due to number of reasons. Among them, a lack of policy consistency, lack of transparency, as well as alleged bribes and corruptions. So these trends are not conducive for the economic development as well as for potential future investment undertaken by both local and foreign investors. Because of that, I think it is very important government present this budget after agreeing with the main political parties to the government, so that after presenting the budget, we will not see changes into various policies and measures as we witnessed in last years. The policy inconsistency resulted uncertainty among investors. So it is, I think, something that this time government should avoid. Government launched Enterprise Sri Lanka last budget. I think it is very important government continue with that particular program, so that Sri Lanka could enhance some number of local entrepreneurships. We need to promote our exports, our local production. In order to achieve those targets, it is very important that government implement this Enterprise Sri Lanka with its true sense. We don't see satisfactory level of progress with respect to Enterprise Sri Lanka, and there are concerns that it may be to some extent partial towards the political party members. So it is important that government avoid such situation.
And in Parliament today, the controversial central bank bond scam as well as new appointments to the Board of Investment, Bank of Ceylon and People's Bank were heavily debated.
We must take all action to put an end to the attempts to cover up the country's biggest fraudulent activity, the controversial central bank bond scam. You must immediately recommence the debate on the report of the Presidential Commission on the bond scam, as the report has been translated to Sinhala and Tamil languages. The debate was halted after only several people were accused in this regard. There are so many people involved in this. I asked the Speaker not to just present only parts of this as per the court ruling. But then you said, as per Attorney General's instructions, you can present only a part of the report to the Parliament. I was not even the Finance Minister when this scam took place, but up until today, I am being harassed over this issue. So why won't you take this debate? What the Attorney General said was that we shouldn't reveal everything since investigations are still underway.
A serious breach of security infringement onto my system today in the morning at 9:30. DMM Lahiru apparently worked at Swarnavahini and ITN without any permission. He has basically used a drone which had gone over my house, recorded. For our luck, my private security, I don't use any MSD at all.
No, I will check on that.
This statement by MP Ravi Karunanayake is quite serious because his house is under surveillance because of the influence of somebody representing the government. What I am asking is, why aren't you still revealing the parts of the bond report to this Parliament? Our own Speaker can't present all of the bond report to this Parliament even after 6 months. If you reveal everything, many ministers and the Prime Minister will be accused of this scam. Have you appointed new chairmen and boards of directors to the Board of Investment, Bank of Ceylon and People's Bank? New appointments have already been made to the Board of Investment. Bank of Ceylon and People's Bank have made record profits. As per the Auditor General's report, no fraudulent activity has taken place. New appointments are always made every 3 years. The President gave this instruction because there are problems in these institutions. So don't try to cover it up. We ask you to appoint a special parliamentary committee to look over this matter.
Taking you to the stock market today, the all share price index ended 0.03% weaker at 5,768.54, while market turnover was 1.26 billion rupees. And we have Hiruni Pereira from First Capital Holdings with a brief report.
Today, bourse ended in red, dragged down by Cargills and HNB, negating the positive sentiment recorded for last couple of days. ASPI witnessed a downward trend during the first half of trading, reaching an intraday low of 5,758 and followed by an upward trend, closing the day at 5,769, losing near 2 points. Turnover crossed 1 billion mark, while 90% was derived from crossings. A net foreign outflow was witnessed with high foreign participation.
And the Sri Lankan rupee closed today near a record low hit earlier this week as banks and importers purchased the dollar while stocks closed flat with higher turnover. The rupee ended at 172 rupees and 80 cents to 90 cents per dollar today. In news overseas, Saudi state media has quoted Saudi Arabia's public prosecutor as saying that journalist Jamal Khashoggi's murder was premeditated. Broadcaster Al Akbariya says the evidence for this came from a joint Saudi-Turkish task force. The claim comes amid media reports which say CIA Director Gina Haspel has heard audio recordings that are believed to capture the killing of the Saudi journalist.
The Office of Saudi Arabia's public prosecutor has said the killing of Jamal Khashoggi at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul this month was premeditated, contradicting Riyadh's previous claims that the journalist was killed by accident and his death covered up by rogue operatives. A statement broadcast by the state-owned Al Akbariya channel said yesterday that new information from Turkey had come to light that changed Riyadh's previous understanding of what happened to Khashoggi. It added that prosecutors were interrogating suspects on the basis of information provided by a joint Saudi-Turkish task force. In the meantime, media reports say CIA Director Gina Haspel has heard audio recordings that are believed to capture the killing of the Saudi journalist. They say Haspel was allowed to listen to the audio during a visit to Turkey earlier this week. Khashoggi, a US-based critic of the Saudi government, was killed during a visit to its consulate in Istanbul. Saudi Arabia has blamed the killing on rogue agents. The case has strained relations with the US and other allies. Soon after the murder on 2nd October, Turkish media quoted officials as saying they had audio recordings of Khashoggi's interrogation and death but gave no details about the content or how the audio had been obtained.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
A very good evening everyone and welcome to Forecast First. Starting with the temperatures, there is a general dip in numbers across the island with the highest around 30 degrees Celsius expected in the Jaffna district, while temperatures in the central hills will be around 20 degrees. Low temperatures can be attributed to the northeast monsoon season, which is well and truly upon us. It is bringing showers and thunder showers to the island, with the trend expected to continue over the next few days as well. Heavy falls of over 100 millimeters are expected in the central, Sabaragamu and eastern provinces as well as in Gol, Mathura and Polonnaruwa districts. Meanwhile, showers or thunder showers are forecast for the coastal line from Kankasanthurei to Matara via Putlam, Colombo and Galle. That's all that we have from the Weather Centre tonight. Here's a look at your city-by-city weather forecast for the next 24 hours.
That's it from First at 9 for tonight, but as usual, we'd like to leave you with some visuals. Tonight, we take you to the Lotus Tower in Colombo. The tower, which is currently under construction, architecturally tops out at 350 meters when completed. The $103 million investment will also become the tallest self-supported structure in South Asia. The lotus-shaped tower's array of illuminations were on display recently, with the tower intended to be used for communications, observation and other leisure facilities. Enjoy the visuals. Have a pleasant evening. Good night.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.